point was to make people aware. It was to call out Microsoft and let employees know where their labor is going and how Microsoft is complicit. And the world knows now who they truly are and what they're doing. I've definitely gotten some backlash, mainly, I guess not surprisingly, but mainly from Hindu nationalists.
Oh, Hindu nationalists.
I don't think we knew at that time or had any idea about like how much publicity this would really get. So there wasn't really a question of like, oh, your name will be out there. I don't think.
Really? All right, picture this. You're a young and talented software engineer who's just landed a role at one of the world's most powerful tech companies. But as time goes on, you start reading some leaks and news reports which say that the company you work for is actively providing the Israeli military with the AI infrastructure to carry out what several leading human rights groups and experts describe as a genocide in Gaza. So you decide to take a stand, publicly confronting company leadership during a high-profile event.
50,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been murdered with Microsoft technology. How dare you? Shame on all you for celebrating on their blood. High times with Israel.
And not long after, you're fired. That's the story of Vaniya Agrawal, a former Microsoft software engineer who, alongside other colleagues, has chosen to speak out. They say their goal is to expose and bring an end to Microsoft's collaboration with the Israeli military. And so we're going to speak to her now and get to know her side of those events. And she joins us now from Seattle. Vaniya Agrawal, thank you so much for coming on Real Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Vaniya, I want to start off. We're going to talk about everything that's happened. We're going to talk about the whole shebang, let's say. But let's actually take it from the very top. The idea of landing roles at two of the biggest tech companies in the world, and I'm talking about Amazon, and then later Microsoft. I think for any young engineer, especially, that would be an excellent progression, like a dream job almost. I mean, is that how it felt for you?
I think that there was some semblance of that. You know, my parents are also Indian American, but grew up with immigrant parents themselves and always had the pressure of you become a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. And
you're preaching to the choir. Preach to the choir.
And, you know, my parents definitely had a little bit of that still ingrained in them. And I definitely held on to that. I think as I was progressing throughout my college degree and trying to find my path forward, especially because, you know, as I mentioned, I had a lot of health issues that prevented me from going to school, but it also prevented me from going into public places. Like I wasn't able to go to the movie theater or the mall or my friends' houses for many, many years because of these health issues that I had. And so my future to me looked it was just a huge question mark. I didn't know what future I had. I didn't know if I would ever be able to work somewhere and get a job like working at Amazon. Like that was just a very far off pipe dream for me that didn't seem like it had any possibility. Yeah, when I started Amazon, it was like a dream. Like, look how far I've come. Look what I've accomplished despite all of the odds against me, despite feeling 5 years ago like I had no future, like I would never even be financially independent or have a job that I could go to. But I also lost my dad. I think it was a month before I had my internship at Amazon. And that was a loss that hit me really hard. I'd also lost my sister. We also lost my sister when I was really young. And at that point, when my dad passed away, it was very sudden and unexpected. And I just, you know, that just really pulled me back into all of those questions of like, okay, I've accomplished this thing that I've been trying to accomplish, which is to build a career and have a job and support myself. But what am I doing it for now? Like now I have Amazon on my resume. I can go and probably get interviews at other places that I wouldn't have been able to get interviews before, and get my foot in the door in tons of other places. But like, why am I here right now? Like working on, I don't know, I was on like builder tools, working on something that it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And the loss of my dad really brought me back to all those questions of just like, what impact do I want to make? And furthermore, we've seen how these tech companies are not only taking advantage of their workers, but also having such large negative impacts on the world in so many ways, which, I eventually started to learn about Microsoft. But at the time when I was at Amazon, it was like, I don't know, learning about all of Amazon's complicity too, because they're all of these companies are complicit. But especially as I started to learn more about like the impact of these companies, I started to let go of this idea that like, oh, I'm chasing this prestige, I'm chasing this really good job, and it started to shift into, no, you know what, I want to chase the things that matter to me, and like go back to that soul searching and that question of like, what makes a positive impact for me, and what does that mean, and what does that look like, and how do I accomplish that?
And so from Amazon, and then how'd you feel when you got that new job at Microsoft once you transferred roles?
Yeah, so when I decided to leave Amazon, I really thought I was done with big tech, I'll be honest. And I was searching for roles in places, tech startups and other companies that were rooted in like social justice or education or climate tech. But around the time where I was job searching, the job market started to just, it didn't start to, it was already kind of plummeting, but it was a really tough job market. And I quickly realized that although I had the name of Amazon on my resume to get me into other doors, that could only take me so far when the market is so difficult. Mass layoffs are happening across the tech space. The pool of people looking for jobs is just so vast that everybody is essentially down leveling themselves to get these roles. There's so much competition. Every job application online instantly gets hundreds of applicants. It was just a really tough time to be applying anywhere. And yeah, like I said, I quickly realized that I couldn't be picky about where I was going to end up. And as much as I wanted to prioritize working and focusing on a company and product that mattered and felt like it was rooted in a mission that aligned with me, um, I struggle to find that and to get into a position where it's really a privilege, I think, to find a space like that and to get into a space like that.
So you getting the Microsoft position wasn't something that you were chasing?
No,
No.
no. It was, I ended up, I think Microsoft ended up being the only company that gave me an offer. I maybe had one other offer at the time. But yeah, it was just that they had reached out to me and I was like, yeah, I'll interview. I might as well. It'll help me as I'm going through this process because it's a numbers game with interviews. And I took the interview and it went well. And I saw all of the other opportunities kind of slipping through my fingers. And I waited a little bit to see if I could secure anything else, but Microsoft was kind of it. And at that point, I was burned out on the interview process, and it's a really grueling and just demanding interview cycle too in tech. So I was just done with it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Microsoft. I'm going to work here maybe at least for a year, and continue looking, continue searching for the next step that I really want to take, and this will hold me over until then. So that's kind of where my head was at when I accepted the Microsoft role.
And that was September 23. And then a month
That was
after that,
September.
yeah, a month after that,
Yeah,
October 7th happens. And then the aftermath, Israel's war on Gaza and
yeah.
everything that we've been seeing for the last 17, 18 months or so. But what happened during that time, a month later for you inside Microsoft?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that I literally joined a week or two before October 7th, um, because it was like this parallel of me, like, I just joined at Microsoft. I was trying to do a good job. I was trying to be a good employee. I still cared about my reputation as a software engineer. I still cared about my career to a certain extent. But then I was also seeing the videos and the photos of martyrs, of children being dismembered and coming out of Gaza. And I was just, it hit me harder than I think anything has really hit me. I know I've mentioned like losing my dad really plunged me into a depression, but like seeing, I think this was my first exposure to war in time and seeing it on my phone, live streamed on my phone, and like at the same time, the exact same time, learning about my own country's complicity, my own country's role in it, how the media is manufacturing consent for it, and also learning how the company that I'm literally working at is arming this apartheid regime and helping develop tools that are enabling this genocide to be as lethal and violent and successful as it is. And every day I started to learn more about Microsoft's role. And I just started to feel more and more complicit.
Do you remember the first time you actually came across a report that linked the AI technology to the Israeli military at Microsoft?
I think I had heard mentions of it. I think when I was still at Amazon, actually, because I remember I was at a protest where they were talking about how all of these tech companies in Seattle, who are based in Seattle, like Amazon and Google and Boeing, are all complicit in the genocide. Actually, no, because that protest must have happened while I was at Microsoft. So it must have been at a protest that I went to um, in the beginning, like towards the end of 2023. But they had mentioned Microsoft in that speech and how Microsoft was complicit. And I think at that point, I was like, okay, I knew Amazon and Google and Project Nimbus was a thing. I obviously know about Boeing, but like, how is Microsoft tied to this? I thought Microsoft was like based in philanthropy and their mission and like their values. And I thought that they were technically like the least evil among tech companies, which was another reason why I was like okay with accepting a job at Microsoft because I was like, okay, they're rooted in a mission. They're rooted in empowering people around the planet.
It aligns a bit more with your views.
Yeah, it didn't feel as discordant as Amazon did. And they had programs to like be involved in not necessarily activism, but like volunteering and fundraising. And it felt like, it could align. But I remember being at that protest and hearing Microsoft and being like, okay, I need to understand more about this. And I think from there, everything I learned was external. I didn't learn anything internally from Microsoft because they try very hard to make sure that any dissent and any words or speeches or opinions about their role is suppressed and silenced
Really?
inside.
Is that the company culture?
I don't think it's a culture that they actively, yeah, or like that they won't own up to that, right? But we saw people in our campaign, people within Microsoft, other employees have like they've been known about Microsoft's complicity for a while, and they've been speaking up internally. Like we saw people posting questions in AMAs with some of the executives. We saw people posting comments and calling out Microsoft and asking them to disclose all their ties in town halls. And those comments would be deleted. They would be ignored. They would be just brushed to the side. And we saw, folks speaking up. We had silent protesters at a town hall recently. I think it was in February, where Satya was talking at a town hall for Microsoft. And we had silent protesters go in wearing shirts saying, "Does our code kill kids, Satya?" And they were just silently escorted out. Their names were taken down, and that was it. Microsoft didn't make a comment, didn't make any acknowledgement of their protest, didn't follow up with anything. And we saw the same thing too when Iftihal and I protested. Like, we have gotten no statement from Microsoft. We've gotten no acknowledgement from them. We've gotten no answers from them on any of this. And even when we sent out mass emails as part of our protest, and they even blocked our emails from being forwarded and replied to after a certain point. So they definitely are suppressing voices that are speaking out against these things. It's just they don't always own up to it, and they don't always make it known that they're doing this. It happens a lot behind the scenes and in the shadows.
Take me to the moment where you were like, okay, I've learned enough about this. I've read enough about this in terms of this collaboration, let's say, or enough about how much Microsoft is providing the Israeli army according to these reports. Now I'm gonna take a stand, or I'm gonna resign from this company. Like, when is it that you felt like you took a decision in your mind? And I'm talking about not necessarily about protesting, by the way. I'm just saying that you were like, okay, I just made my mind up of where my place is, and maybe I need to leave, or I need to protest, or I need to speak up. Like, when is it that you felt that you thought that way?
I think sometime towards the end of last year, I was really struggling with where I was. I really felt like I was not where I wanted to be, but I also didn't know where I could go because I felt like every tech company was complicit the more I learned about it. And everybody had somewhat of a foothold in the military industrial complex. And I was really struggling like with the question of, do I stay and try to apply pressure from within, or do I just leave and get out and go somewhere else and apply external pressure however I can? I was also struggling with my own mental health at the time because I don't know, I ended up taking a leave of absence at the end of last year for several months because I felt really stuck. I felt really trapped, and I felt really just despondent of like, I'm seeing so much injustice and pain, and I don't feel like I'm just one person and I'm never going to be able to do anything about this. And it, like, going back in retrospect, like, I understand why I was in that place, but like, it was such a flawed understanding of how movements work and how change happens. And in retrospect, like, um, yeah, we could talk about that more. But anyways, I took a leave of absence because I felt so trapped and stuck. I didn't know what to do. I thought that after my leave of absence, I would just leave and not come back to Microsoft. I seriously considered not going back to Microsoft after my leave.
And you consider
But
that basically as your way of doing something, or as your way of contributing to the movement, basically.
or even just, I think it was more of a selfish take. It was more like, I physically cannot tolerate being here, and I'm struggling with it myself, and I just need to get myself out of this environment. It was not, I didn't have the perspective at the time of like, what can I do to help the movement? Because I also wasn't connected yet with the movement of ex and current Microsoft employees. I actually didn't even know that they really existed. It wasn't until towards the end of my leave of absence where I was like, okay, I still need a job and I still need an income. And so why don't I stay at Microsoft, but try to figure out a way to get connected to other Microsoft employees who are, because there must be other people who feel the same as me. And I just don't know where they are, and I'm not connected to them.
By that point, you weren't basically in conversations with other colleagues about what was happening in Gaza? Like, there wasn't that? Really? I find that interesting.
Oh, Because I had seen I had seen inside, like, I saw people speaking up and I saw their comments getting deleted. I saw Zionists piling in on them. I saw them getting ignored and just dismissed. And I was like, I don't know. I felt like it wasn't going to work. Applying pressure inside and like talking to people, talking to my manager, talking to HR, like, I didn't see that getting me anywhere. And again, a flawed understanding of how change works and how change happens. And a regret that I have is that I didn't take more action while I was in that position. Um, but I think I was just so skeptical and cynical because I had seen previous responses to other employees who had.
And that was you. You would be going to the office, right? Like this wasn't a remote job.
It was fully remote.
It was fully remote. Okay, that makes more sense now. Okay. But when you say that you've spoken to managers or executives at the company, I mean, what was that conversation like? Like what was being said? What was being said back to you?
So I didn't speak to managers or executives at the company, but I saw in like town halls and AMAs, people leaving comments, people um, adding questions, people getting on the mic at town halls and asking questions about these things, and just outright getting dismissed, outright getting ignored, just nothing ever coming of it. And so that really discouraged me from speaking out. And like I said, I was fully remote. I didn't really have any personal connections to people on my team. My team wasn't really connected on a level beyond professional. We didn't have casual conversations. I didn't feel like I had allies on the team that I could speak to. And so when I was on my leave of absence, that's when I was like, there must be other people beyond just this little bubble that I'm in that feel similarly as
Yeah.
me. And so I started looking into, I was like, who's protesting Microsoft right now and how do I get connected to them? And in that search, I found the No Azure for Apartheid campaign. I found an article about the two organizers, Hassan and Abdo, who had been fired just like a month or two prior for organizing a vigil on campus to honor the martyrs on the anniversary of October 7th. And as soon as I found them, I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I need to connect with these people and I need to see how I can support them and how I can join their movement and like maybe take advantage of my position, maybe just leave. So I reached out to them. I tried to like get on board with them, but it took a while. And I think within like that month or two where I was like trying to get in the door with this campaign, I was also just fine. I had returned to work. My leave of absence had ended. I was also just feeling like this is not a good, I can't be in this space much longer. I need to maybe focus on my mental health while also joining this campaign and doing what I can with the campaign. I'm sure there's things that I can do if I were to leave Microsoft. So actually the day that I had onboarded with the campaign, I had also submitted my resignation. I submitted my resignation not knowing yet what my role was going to be with this campaign and how I would be contributing. But I told them like, I think I need to leave for my own sanity, but while I'm still here, I want to do what I can to take advantage of my position because I know I'm in a very privileged place. Like to be at Microsoft and know what's going on, know the details about the role that they're playing in this genocide and not be supportive of it, but also to not be held on, like not be tied to this role because I'm on a visa or because I have children to support or because I have a family to take care of. Like I don't have any of those responsibilities. And I feel like I'm in a really strong position of power to apply pressure and like take risks and do things that like other organizers within this campaign might not be able to take. And so I felt like this responsibility of, I'm here right now and I'm in this company. So like, let me do whatever I can do to take advantage of that And then I also want to support the campaign once I eventually leave as well.
But it is also one thing, Vanya, to to decide that you're going to resign and leave the company because, you believe the company's complicit, you believe the company doesn't align with your views, and you need to kind of detach yourself from that. That's one thing. It's a totally other thing to do that while, protesting and interrupting a panel that has the company's CEOs, including someone like Bill Gates, because of, what that would mean in terms of the repercussions, the fact that this would live forever online and everything that comes with that. I don't need to list it. They're obviously, they're not the same thing. It's such a big leap from that to the other. But again, what made you feel, I don't know what the right word here would be. Would it be comfortable? Would it be just okay with that kind of decision? What made you just, be fine with it?
I think it was more than just fine. I felt like I needed to do something, and so I think going back to like that idea of feeling like I'm in a position that not many people find themselves in. Being a citizen of the US, like my the protections that I have may not last for very long. But for now, I have the most protections um, that somebody could get in this country in terms of my status. And I'm not tied to this. I'm not tied to, I don't need this job. I don't need it for a visa. I don't need it to support my family. I am free to do whatever I want to do and not really impact anybody else. Like any consequences will just come to me. Um, and even beyond that, I feel like what made me take that leap was, sorry, I'm losing track of what I was talking about. I was talking about,
Well, let me take you right to it. I mean, this is, we've all seen the video. Obviously, it's went viral. You got up in the middle of that panel, which, like I said, had Bill Gates, and you said this: 50,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been murdered with Microsoft technology. How dare you? So that moment right there, if you could just take me to it for a little bit.
sure. Do you mind if I go back? I remembered what I wanted to say just really
Yeah.
quickly about previously. So I was saying that like I'm in a very unique role, right? Because I have this freedom. And there's a spectrum, like when it comes to campaigns, especially like No Azure for Apartheid, like there's a huge spectrum of needs. And there's a huge spectrum of like actions that people can take that range in terms of risks from like not even showing your face or your name and just doing work behind the scenes, all the way to what Ibtihal and I did, where our faces were posted and reposted online, and our full names were posted online as well. And I felt like being in the position that I had, I felt like I was the right person to play the role that was needed there, and the role that was needed in these like somebody needs to make the noise, somebody needs to take the risks. And I felt like I was poised to take that on. And more so than that, I felt like, I have been talking about how I was like having my own mental health struggles and like struggling with the loss of my family, the loss, and like also witnessing the loss in Gaza, and how all of that just like made me really question and feel like what am I going to hold on to? What am I waking up for every morning? What am I living for? And at this point, I even felt at times like I didn't want to be here. I didn't feel like change was possible, and I felt like the world was just so dark. Um, and I didn't want to be here anymore. And I felt like there was nothing for me to hold on to at a certain point. But then when I joined this campaign and I found these people that I connected with on values that like had a way forward and had a plan and like were very concretely making change themselves. I was I I found purpose in that, and I found something to hold on to. And I found like, okay, my job doesn't matter to me. My career doesn't really matter to me. Honestly, at that point, my life didn't really matter to me. But I felt like if I'm going to stay here on this planet, I'm going to stay here to fight. And I'm going to stay here to fight alongside these Palestinians in Gaza who are fighting every single day themselves, despite all of the pain and all of the suffering and all of the tragedy and trauma that they are experiencing by the minute. So I felt like another piece. It wasn't just like, okay, I'm in a good position to do this. It also was like I had nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. I was in a point in my life and my mental state where I was like, I am not holding on to anything really in this world. And this I want to fight for this, and I this is the thing that I will hold on to. And when you said like I don't know what the right word is for like how you felt when you stood up there, I think the word was just like resolute. Like I was like I finally felt like I was in the place that I wanted to be. I remember sitting in that chair and being like, of course I was scared. I was like, Bill Gates is over there, Satya Nadella is over there. People have idolized these men for decades. And like, am I really gonna stand up in front of like thousands of people watching this live stream and like do this? So yes, there was fear. Yes, I was scared, but like I also just felt this sense of calm and like clarity of just I feel like I'm where I need to be right now. And I feel like this is the role I am supposed to play and I want to play.
But Vanya, also, I mean, when you say that you felt at that moment you had nothing to lose, you're
Hmm.
still quite young. And I guess the first thing that would come to so many people's minds is that, okay, well, she's clearly written off any future job opportunities, because the first thing anyone, hiring her is going to do is going to search her up. They're going to, find this event, what she did, the protest, and they're going to like, oh, okay, maybe she's a bit of a troublemaker. Maybe we should kind of step away from her, look at another candidate or whatever. It's more that. Is that not something that you took into consideration? I'm sure you did, but I'm just wondering
Yeah.
what it was like.
Yeah, I definitely took it into consideration. And my partner took it into consideration. And my mother took it into consideration when I was talking to them about it as well.
And
And,
I'm gonna
these
get to
were
that too. The mother side. I'm gonna ask about your mom, but yes, go ahead. Sorry.
she has a lot of thoughts. So it was definitely considered. And, even though I'm saying like I had nothing to lose because I don't care about those things, like people in my life care about those things for me. And they were like, okay, you might not be in a mental state to care about those things, but these things matter. And you should think about them and think about the consequences. And are you really ready to risk all of this to take this stand and to make this statement? And I think they didn't like my answer, but I was like, yes, I know that there is a risk, but I also feel like if there's a company in the future that won't hire me because of my stance on genocide, like that's probably not a company I want to work with anyways. And I'm sure that there will be other opportunities at places that are supportive of my stance and what I believe, and that will support me and will want to hire me. And maybe that's where I should be going anyways. And maybe this will help me get closer to a place where I do feel like the work that I'm doing aligns with my own values and what I want to do. So it was a question. And, you know, it's not to say like I didn't care about any of job opportunities or anything. Like I just felt like, whatever consequences come, let them come. I feel like this issue is bigger than me and my job and my career, and other things will come. Other things will come. Life will happen, and I'll just figure it out as I go. And um, Yeah, I don't know. I think it was also like maybe it'll give me clarity if like people don't want to hire me. It'll give me clarity on where they stand. It'll give me more clarity about companies in this space, and maybe I'll leave tech altogether if nobody in tech wants me anymore. So,
I'm gonna come back to the protests in a sec, but because I'm so interested in that conversation, and forgive my reenactment, but being the son of immigrants and your
mhm,
family being children of immigrants as well, and obviously a visible minority too, we all know how serious of a conversation this is going to be when you go to your mom and you're like,
mhm,
okay, I'm going to leave my job, I'm going to resign, and this is how I'm
mhm,
going to do it. And
mhm.
what is the first thing that she told you?
Um, hmm. She said she was like, "Are you sure?" She wanted to be supportive. But she was also like, is your career going to be okay? Like, are you going to be able to find a job? Are you going to be able to, are people going to hire you? Like, I don't think people will hire you. That was her main concern, was the career. And it was also like, I don't think we knew at that time or had any idea about like how much publicity this would really get. So there wasn't really a question of like, oh, your name
Really?
will be out there. Yeah, I don't think
Really?
we expected to some extent. We expected to some extent, like we hopefully will get some attention and get some eyes on this. But like this blew up, I think, way beyond any of us expected. Um, and so it wasn't like a question of like, oh, media is going to be like posting your face and your name everywhere. Like that wasn't really a question that my mom brought up. Um,
But did you feel like, oh shit, I miscalculated a little?
I think it was something that I had thought about, and my partner had been like, you need to think about like there could be a consequence where your face is everywhere and your name is everywhere. And I was like, what, I don't really know. I don't think so. But in retrospect, yeah, I think when it started to happen, it wasn't like, oh no, I miscalculated. It was just kind of like shock, I think, just in awe of how far a message can travel. Um, and like just amazement at the campaign and what it was able to accomplish. Because it wasn't just me and Ittihal, it was like so many people behind this movement. Um, but going back to my mom, yeah, my mom was just like, she was just like, eventually I kind of told her, like there were two other Microsoft employees who were fired just several months ago. Like if I get fired, she was worried about like, what if you get fired? What if Microsoft fires you? Like that's a bad look. And I told her, there were two Microsoft employees who were fired several months ago and they're doing okay. Like we'll all figure it out. Like there's people who support this cause, and there are companies that will want to support us if we take this stand, and that will come out and show up, and like I won't be left hanging if that happens. I know that there's a community to catch me if I need it. And after that, I think, I'm very open with my mom, and I have talked to her about my own struggles and my own mental health, and she was very well aware of the place that I was in the past year. And she was like, I really feel like the thing in life that I want for you is I want you to find peace and fulfillment and happiness in whatever you do. And if this is what gets you there, like I want to support you. And I have these fears and I have these concerns, but if you feel like this is the right thing to do, then I trust you and your decision and I support you. So I was really lucky I had my mom's support in that.
And if we go to the immediate aftermath of that protest, so you got up and you interrupted the panel and you said what you said, and then you get escorted out, and then what happens between that point and the point where your job was terminated?
Hmm. So we, um, As part of the protest, we also had a rally going on outside the event as well. So Ibtihal and I both were in this keynote event. We both did our disruptions. And then after our disruptions, immediately sent out mass emails to Microsoft employees calling out Microsoft's complicity and calling other employees to action. And immediately after I was escorted out, I went and I joined the rally with Ibtihal. And within 30 minutes of my disruption, I lost all access to my corporate account. So I was locked out of my emails, my Teams, all corporate resources without any notice from Microsoft, without any acknowledgement or anything. When they escorted me out, they asked me a couple questions about what building I worked out of, what my name was. They took my picture. They asked me if I came with anybody. And then they just let me go, essentially. And then, 30 minutes later, I got cut off. Ibtihal got cut off. Before we both got cut off, we were getting tons and tons of responses in our email and in Teams in just support of what we did and what we said. And tons of Microsoft employees were reaching out to us saying, number one, I had no idea. I didn't know Microsoft's role in the genocide. I didn't know that Microsoft was arming the Israeli military with digital weapons.
So Microsoft employees were messaging you this
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
after
Immediately.
your protest. Okay.
Yeah, within minutes. And other people saying, thank you for the stance that you took. Other people saying, I'm now questioning my role at Microsoft. I'm questioning whether I want to stay here. I think I want to leave. But like I said, I got cut off pretty quickly. And so I only received a certain number of messages, and then I got cut off and I couldn't log in and I couldn't see any more messages. But in that 30-minute span, I had gotten tons of emails. I'd gotten a couple Teams messages. And then people started reaching out on LinkedIn because they weren't able to get a hold of me or didn't want to get a hold of me internally. So then we were cut off. We didn't hear from Microsoft that day. That was a Friday. And then Saturday passed, Sunday passed. We still hadn't heard anything from Microsoft. Monday came along, and as far as we knew, we were still employed. We were very unsure of what was happening because we still couldn't access anything. I couldn't get in touch with any of my team members. I had to text my manager from my personal phone. Luckily, I had his number. And I said, hey, I haven't heard anything from Microsoft, but I'm cut off from all my resources. Like, as far as I know, I'm still employed. Are we going to adjust my expectations? What's going on? Is there any updates? And he immediately responded to me, basically with Microsoft's response, which was, thank you for your resignation. We are accepting it effective immediately. So I wasn't supposed to, my resignation, my end date was supposed to be April 11th. And on that Monday, April 7th, they sent me that message saying, we're terminating you effective immediately. And then Ibtihal got a hold of her manager as well. And they pulled her into an HR call and told her that she was terminated effective immediately as well.
And now that, a couple weeks have passed and maybe the dust has settled just a little bit, how are you looking back? Do you feel like the price was worth it?
100%, like 1,000%. Especially it's been
no doubt at all, huh? No hesitation.
No hesitations. No. I think especially seeing like I said, we didn't expect this response, and I think seeing I would have given you the same answer had I known just the people who responded to me in my Microsoft email saying that they were rethinking their role at Microsoft. Just having 10 responses and knowing that we got this message out to 10 more employees at Microsoft, I would have felt content and successful, because the point was to make people aware. It was to call out Microsoft and let employees know where their labor is going and how Microsoft is complicit. And I think seeing that our message has actually gone global and is having material impacts on Microsoft's image, and the world knows now who they truly are and what they're doing. Like they can't hide behind their mission or their philanthropy or their prestige anymore. Like the world knows that they are a weapons manufacturer. The world knows that they are arming the Israeli military. And so that having the world know that, I think, is just beyond, I think, the expectations of what we had going into this. And having that come of it, I feel 100% with full conviction. I stand by my actions. I stand by the stance that I took.
I'll ask you about the details of the campaign, but before I do, Vanya, for the sake of playing the other side as well, and and, and looking at it from a different perspective, what if these outbursts and these protests and these campaigns lead to these big tech companies kind of blocking out potential future candidates who are pro-Palestine or have said some things that are, in solidarity with Gaza on their social media and whatnot. And they're like, you know what? These people with these views, they might be a bit problematic with us. We might go for someone a bit more neutral. Is that something that would cross your mind, a thought like this, for example?
I feel like that's already kind of happening, to be honest. It's definitely something to consider when calling out these companies, but what's the alternative, that we don't call out these companies? What is the alternative? I think any action that you take might have negative consequences, but I I don't know. I feel like you have to do something, and you can't be paralyzed by this idea of, okay, well, maybe they will act this way and we don't want that. Because at that point you're not ever going to do anything. Like any action you take, they will push back. They
Right.
will find ways to retaliate. They will find ways to suppress. But I feel like that's why the movement needs, like, that's why these things can only happen with collectives of people. And like, you can't just do these things alone. You need the people who like aren't as active on social media, aren't as public about their views. And like people like that will still be able to, they're still hireable to those companies at that point. Like that's why you need, I don't know, people behind you of like all across the spectrum, in terms of what they have out there, what they're saying, what risks they're willing to take. I just feel like, yeah. And like I said, I feel like they're already suppressing. They're already doing that to some extent. I mean, maybe they're not using it in their hiring processes, but maybe they are. Like, who knows? I'm sure all of these companies are using AI tools to filter and scan through candidates. Who's to say that those tools don't have biases against pro-Palestinian voices, or I don't know, names that sound a certain way? I feel like that suppression is something that is very, very likely could already be happening. And if it's not, even if it does happen, like resistance will find a way. And I feel like we can't hold on to these. There's still a way to apply pressure from the outside too. Like maybe if pro-Palestinian voices can't get on the inside, like external pressure is always a route as well. So I don't know. I don't feel as concerned about that piece, but maybe there are pieces to it that I'm missing.
If I ask you about the campaign, its goal is to what? Is it to bring a spotlight on Microsoft's relationship with the Israeli military, or is it wanting to go further than that? Also, is it wanting to end that collaboration?
Yeah, so No Azure for Apartheid campaign, it's led by Microsoft workers and former Microsoft workers who are demanding an end to Microsoft's complicity in Israel's apartheid and genocide. And we have four main demands of Microsoft. So one is that Microsoft leadership must disclose all ties to the Israeli state, military, tech industry, weapons manufacturers, and contractors that are all playing a role in the genocide and the continuation of the apartheid. So number one is to disclose all ties. The second demand is to divest and to cut all of these ties, to end all of the Azure contracts and partnerships with the Israeli military and government. The third demand is to honor the demands of employees who are calling on Microsoft to publicly endorse an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And then the fourth demand is to protect their employees and ensure the safety of Palestinian, Arab, Muslim, and allied employees by protecting pro-Palestinian speech, actions, and fundraising initiatives on company platforms. So we want them to end these contracts. We want them to cut these ties. We want them to call for a ceasefire. And we want them to protect these employees who have been speaking up and speaking out that they have been suppressing and retaliating against.
Since basically having your job terminated, have you been subjected to any kind of harassment, or has anyone tried to call you out or pose any threat to you?
Yeah, I think the majority of the response has been overwhelmingly positive and supportive, but I've definitely gotten some backlash and some threatening messages and some hateful spam, especially on social media. And particularly from, of course, a couple of things here and there from Zionists, but mainly, I guess not surprisingly, but mainly from Hindu nationalists. So people who are Hindu
nationalists.
Seeing an Indian girl stand up for Palestine, where India has very deep and long ties to Israel and is very much allied to Israel and is even following their playbook in how they approach the occupation of Kashmir. So India is very, very much allied and pro-Israel. And I believe the people who see me online think that I am betraying my country, betraying Hindus, and I've got a lot of backlash from that community specifically.
Is that something that you saw coming? No.
No, no, not at all. I don't think I understood I didn't realize exactly how Hindu nationalism was tied to Zionism and similar to Zionism and allied and supportive of Zionism.
Right. We're talking about Hindutva specifically.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, just going through this experience has really opened my eyes to that because, I grew up in America. My first time being in India was like 2 years ago. I had never been to India before 2022. Like I have extended family still there, but most of my immediate family and my close relatives are all in the US. I've grown up in the culture of the US and my family, my paternal grandparents were Hindu. But my maternal grandparents were Muslim and Christian. And so my family never followed like a particular religion. My parents never subscribed to or pushed on us like specific religious values. It was always like our families come from all of these religions, and we kind of had pieces of all of these different religions interwoven into our lives. Like we celebrated Easter just as much as we celebrated Diwali. But, even though I celebrated Diwali, I still wasn't really ingrained in Hinduism and the culture and the like political ties that come along with that sometimes. So I think this experience has really opened my eyes to that world and has really kind of thrown me off into the deep end in it.
Is that something that would factor in your activism, let's say? And what I mean by that is bringing a light or shining a light on that relationship between Hindu nationalism and Zionism.
Definitely, 100%. I think, my stance on Palestine isn't just because, you know, they're Muslim or because they're Arab or like it's like a human issue, right? Like any country that is subjected to an apartheid regime and oppression and violence, like I believe I will stand for their liberation and their freedom and fight alongside them. No matter if it's Palestine, no matter if it's Kashmir. And I do feel like I'm trying to learn more about that relationship between India and Israel and Kashmir and Palestine even, so that I can take more action in that space. I was actually sharing some stuff on Kashmir on my Instagram the other day, and I started getting messages from other Indians saying, like, who had followed me because of their support for my stance on Palestine, but then saw my post about Kashmir and said, "Oh, none of this is true. I'm unfollowing you," which was like very weird cognitive dissonance to me. Um, so yeah, I think I have a lot to learn about these ties and this relationship, but I definitely am trying to learn more about it um, so I can take a stand with it too.
Before I get to my last couple questions, has any of the, I guess, the harassment that you've been getting online, has anything needed to be reported to the police, or you felt like it was life threatening of that sense? No. Okay.
No, not to that extent. It's been mean, but at most it's been mean and just hurtful and offensive. Nothing that I've worried for my safety or anything of that sort. Like nobody has even seen me in public or said anything to me in public, and it's all online. So yeah, nothing that's come to that so far.
And where is Vanya at today?
I don't know. I'm asking the same question, man. I feel like I'm a little bit closer. I've taken a step closer to what I want, where I want to be. I just still don't have a clear idea of what that looks like, but I know that I'm doing things that I care about and that are important and feel important to me. And I'm going to just continue. Right now, I'm continuing to organize with No Azure for Apartheid as much as I can. I'm also trying to get into other spaces. There's a group called South Asians Resisting Imperialism they're doing great work, trying to dismantle the caste system and stereotypes and ideas around caste. And I'm just trying to learn more about how the world works and get myself into these spaces where people are doing all of this like important and impactful work so I can help them however I can. So that's where I am right now. I'm not sure how much longer I'll stay in tech if I can find a place in tech that, feels like like I resonate with it, but I'm not ruling anything out for now. But yeah, it's still a big question mark. And I think it'll be a big question mark for the rest of my life.
At the beginning of our conversation, we're talking about, young Vanya when she felt like she wanted to leave a positive impact on the world. Is that a bit more clearer now? Do you feel like you're somehow on that path? Like if she was to see you today, and I'm talking about you like you're two different people, but if your younger self were to see the position you're in today after everything that's happened over the last few weeks, what do you think you'd feel?
It's so funny. I'm so glad you asked that because like in the past couple of weeks, I know I know our protest and our action has made an impact, but I still feel like, oh, I feel like I could have done more. Like I feel like I'm still not doing enough. And I feel like I haven't really reflected to be like, you know what, look where I am now and what I have done. And I think young Vanya B proud. I think I would definitely be proud of myself. And just kind of shocked at where I am now. I think when I was young, I just had I didn't think I had a future at all. And to think that I could have a future where I'm doing something that I do care about and that matters and that is attempting to make a positive impact is like more than I could ever ask for. So like so much gratitude for where I am, even though I don't really know where I'm going. And it's such, yeah, a great perspective to have. And something I've also been thinking about that like I think matters a little bit more than like thinking about my own like younger self is like I feel like my dad would be proud of me and I feel like my sister would be proud of me and I feel like in a lot of ways like I'm living for them, like their lives were taken from them and they were such amazing and incredible people and like the best of truly the best of us, and I am who I am because of them. And I have these views because they were such kind and caring and loving and warm people. And I truly feel like everything I do is to honor them and their memory and just continue their legacy. And I think they both would be really proud of me. And that's what I think I care most about.
Well, on that note, we're gonna leave it here, Vanya. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with me. I really appreciate it, and I actually do appreciate you taking all this time to speak. So thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. I really appreciate you even wanting to talk to me. It's really an honor, and I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you, Vanya. Thanks so much.